I started in music. I'm from San Diego, and I started playing guitar, and I love Led Zeppelin and the Beatles, and so I got my first guitar, and I just learned that kind of stuff. And just through high school, I ended up learning about sound on sound recording. Like they have these little cassette tape recorders where you can multi-track and stuff. And I got really into that. And around that time, I got into reggae music, like classic reggae, like King Tubby, Lee Scratch Perry, Mad Professor. And I was hearing things that just was so mind blowing to me that I, because at that time, it's not like you just Google, like, it wasn't that easy to find information about things in the snap of a second like it is now. But over time, I realized I was like, the sounds that I'm hearing, like the reverbs and the effects and all this kind of really cool stuff was happening from the sound engineer. And so that became kind of like an interesting thing because playing music wasn't so natural to me. It was like really just kind of frustrating because I couldn't just pick up a guitar and just hear a melody and play it. It was just like, you know, um, but with that, I got really good with mixing and understanding that. I was so interested in it. I got books and things like that. I even took courses in community college. And then I just realized that that's what I wanted to do, mix and record and all that. And so naturally I moved to LA because that's the closest town that has an industry for it. And so that's what interests me with the reggae music because they were using the console as an instrument. And so that made me feel like a part of the team because I had like a reggae band and I have friends back home that still have reggae bands. And um, that's, I couldn't contribute musically, but to me, that's how I felt like I was a part of the band, you know, and so kind of had a place in that whole scene. And so it's really cool. Some people that changed my approach and perspective, it kind of starts back to the reggae thing. Those were my first influences with recording and mixing. King Tubby, he built his own equipment and he was one of the revolutionaries in dub music. And Lee Scratch Perry and Mad Professor was from the UK. And just they showed me that you could do things outside of the box, like literally, and but from there I'm very fond of the Beatles, so I got really into like studying Jeff Emerick and got his book and just listening to that music and stuff like that, and I just was like enamored with that, just impressed. Because if you read the book, he talks about pushing the limits of techniques and stuff, moving the microphones and doing things that people in lab coats were like, oh no, no. So to me, I was just like, man, this is like so amazing. And from there, Eddie Kramer, obviously, and I've met him in person. He's just a sweet guy, and I've learned a lot from him just listening to his music and just talking, giving techniques. And I got to give a lot of credit to Neil Citron. He's an engineer who gave me my first kind of chance in the industry, hired me into Steve Vai's camp. And through him, I learned a lot about stuff, and he works very, very fast. And I learned, about owning my own equipment. He was always like, I have these specific mics. Even if you go to a studio that has a bunch of mics, he has specific mics or compressors and things like that. And so, he mentored me early on when I started doing this for a living. And, people like Joe Barresi, I just listen to all his stuff. I just love it. Eric Valentine, these guys are just very good at what they do. And you study their stuff like a Bible. It's like, I listen to it and I'm like, man, nothing I do ever will sound this good, but so when I moved to LA, I went to the Los Angeles Recording School, which was purchased by Full Sail. I don't remember if it was like the same time or slightly after. And through there, I just started doing internships as part of the program, and that's how I met Neil. And I started assisting with him and doing that. And, That's back in the day when an assistant would actually like sweep the floors and take out the trash. You can't ask anybody to do that today. It's kind of funny. There's memes all about it. The first breakthrough in the industry, I don't know. I mean, because I started working with Steve Vai early on, and he has a different process of making music. There'll be a lot of time where things aren't released. So, um, but the one thing that I'm really proud of, that it's not the first project I did with him, but I think it was actually the first project that I used Auto Align on, and it's a nostalgic thing. We did a Passion and Warfare 25th anniversary, and a part of that was putting out unreleased music that was recorded between his first record, Flexible, and Passion and Warfare. And so all this stuff was songs that he might have been heard performing live, but it never was finished. And so to me, like, I'm just a huge fan of that. Like, I love the Beatles session stuff where you hear the outtakes. So to me, that, somebody else might have a different opinion of my work, but that was the first time I was like, this is so cool. I love this, because I knew fans of him would really appreciate that, unearthing songs that just were basically dead in the water. So that project was called Modern Primitive. It was kind of like the sister project. It originally was released as a package in the Passion Warfare, but now it's been released separately. When I start a mix, I really listen to the raw tracks. Like a lot. It's different. Like, it's easier if I recorded the track. I'm very familiar with it. But if I get something that somebody else recorded and gets sent to me, the first thing I do is just take off all the plugins. Because I just, like, I'll save that as reference. I don't want to get rid of it, but I just want to hear the things in their most natural source. And what I like to do is just listen to things, get pans in place, and not put any processing, EQ, nothing. And then the first thing after level and panning is I'll put Auto Align on the tracks, and I'll run that and listen to it. And then from there, just start doing the normal thing of adding some compression, getting the drum bus happening, things that you're going to have to do down the line. But yeah, it kind of starts with Auto Align in a way. But I remember doing a project that was just like tons and tons of tracks, like hundreds of tracks, for a client that I had, that he'd recorded everything, and I was trying to like mix it. And it just was, I don't want to say it was a disaster, but it was just having that many tracks and all this stuff going on. It's hard to tame. And so I can't remember how I found out about it, but it might have, I just found it, and it was amazing to me. Like, I used it on the drums, then I just started figuring out different ways to use it. And it was the end. I've used it on every project since then. What I'm working on now is, Steve's on tour for the In Violet record, which we put out earlier this year. And so I do tour support. I build backing track rigs and things like that. So I'm kind of like sort of on call to help those guys on the road. But putting together a few video projects. There was a lot of footage recorded during the Passion Warfare 25th anniversary tour that just we never did anything with. So putting that together, have a lot of usually he records every show in Pro Tools, so we have all the multi-tracks. And so that one wasn't really fully professionally recorded per se, but there's a lot of footage. And so I'm trying to get something together for that. So I think that's in the works. The next project to come out, there's a record that Steve recorded, I think in 91, 92, before Sex and Religion, that record he did with Devin Townsend, with a buddy of his, and his nickname is Gash. And he recorded kind of like a straight up rock and roll motorcycle kind of sounding record, and that was never put out. So now it's in the process of being released. So that'll probably be the next release. Obviously, as everybody, evolve, their workflow evolves over time as technology and just new equipment. But we're advocates of analog. Like, we just love vintage gear. So, that's a custom tree audio console. Um, we use we use it all for like tracking. There's mic pre's and EQs in the desk, and mixing, compressors, and all that stuff. But it's also a hybrid. We use a lot of effects in Pro Tools, things like that, and so yeah, it's a hybrid setup. If I had unlimited power, I would I would ask for a plugin that I press one button and it just puts all my tracks in phase. I don't know. I mean, it's hard because your company is making a lot of that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't want to take away too much work. It's like it's fun. So I'm not sure. The future of music processing, I think it's on it's on a good path. It's taken a long time for plugins to sound good, and they do. Like I said before, we mostly use effects in Pro Tools. Like, we'll do some Eventide and stuff like that here and there, but a lot of the plugins, like the EMT 250, we sold that because it there's noisy, and UAD makes a good version. And there's companies like yourself that are making plugins that just you can't do in hardware. And so the advancements of technology is just making our jobs easier. And I think, like Autoline specifically, it helps people who might not be as skilled to really make their stuff sound better. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think it's in a good path. Steve, we recorded this track called Candle Power. And Steve's concept was he wanted just drums, bass, and guitar. So there was only one guitar part, no overdubs, no layering. Um, and it's clean. So it's hard to just throw up a mic and record that and make it sound big. You know what I mean? So that one is really cool because the challenge was that we ended up using 16 microphones to capture that one guitar. And uh, basically what it is Steve's main rig is a stereo rig. So there's two speakers. Even if there's no effects, it'll come out two speakers. So we, three mics on each cab on the front, one mic on the back because we're using open back because it's clean. So that just gives a good kind of body. And then a combo amp that had front and back mics. And then if you saw in the live room, we have room mics mounted in the ceiling, and there's 6 of them. So as you can imagine, that's a disaster, right? And of course a DI, so technically that's 17 tracks for the guitar. But Autoline did its job. And if you listen to that track back, it's like you never would know that there was that many mics and whatnot, but that's how you get that kind of sound. What I really like about Autoline is just it allows me to maintain the natural quality of the recording. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of adds what you would try to do with EQ. And as you know, EQ, just there's phase shift and just issues there that you don't want to mess with unless you're going for a certain kind of effect. And so with Autoline 2, it's all there. Like, it just blows me away that you can bypass it listening to the whole track, like 40 channels, and you hear it. You just focus in on guitar, bass, drums, and you hear them poke out and just come into focus. It's unbelievable. If I were to give advice to somebody who's just starting out, I mean, the main thing is relationships, like the quality of relationship between one person to another and a band. Just be a likable person, listen, respect other people's input, opinions. And believe it or not, I mean, that's more important than the actual skill and knowledge of knowing how to set up a microphone. You know what I mean? There's so many people that are amazing people that don't know that, but they're the ones that people want to bring back because it was an enjoyable experience. And I think that's number one. I mean, the skills come over time. It's like riding a bike, you keep doing it. But if you're not a likable person, it's just, you're not going to get anywhere. That would be the advice.